on to our prepared speakers. Today, our speakers are in the form of a workshop and giving us tips on the upcoming competitions. Our first competition tip speaker will be Toastmaster Troy Strawn, who will give us an overview of the International Speech Competition. Toastmaster Troy Strawn.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can share my screen. And now, okay, great. Can everybody hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. This is
Loud
really
and
good.
clear.
And you can see me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Pardon?
We can see you too.
Okay, awesome. So Maya Angelou once said that people may forget what you said, people may forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And being part of the Toastmasters experience and participating in the International Speech Contest, while your goal is to win, in order to ensure that you can win is by ensuring that at the end of the day, after you would have finished speaking, you would have given your audience something to feel. And so this evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I want to walk you through some of the elements that are essential, some of the ingredients that are essential to creating an award-winning Toastmasters International Speech Competition speech. Hopefully my computer wouldn't fail me now, as it's trying to embarrass me, but that's okay. Let's see. See if I can make my slide move. All right, awesome. So the areas of focus that I want to walk you through is your KYA, how you're going to say it, discovering your own special, unique delivery method, and most importantly, the areas of focus that the judges actually look at in order to decide whether or not you're the winner. And lastly, and most importantly, your close. So the first thing that you need to do when you're contemplating entering the International Speech Competition is understanding who your audience is. See, in Toastmasters, you have single women, you have married women, you have single mothers, you have career women, and then you have men who are single as well, who are fathers. But when you're crafting your international speech, you're not just looking at the demographic makeup of your audience. You also have to consider the cultural background of your audience. You see, your speech may be evaluated and judged by people not from the Bahamas, but from people eventually from California to Calcutta, all over the world. And so prior to sitting down and crafting your speech, you have to be mindful of the cultural sensitivities that are involved, the various ethnicities that are a part of the program, the various sexual preferences, etc. So your speech can't be written with a local mindset. You may deliver it locally to a point, but at some point, that speech is going to be heard by an international audience. So before you even craft your speech, before you even choose your speech title, you have to consider the audience, not just in your club, not just in your area, and not just in your division, but in your district and beyond. So keep that in mind before you even decide to give your speech a title. And so that's the most important thing starting out the gate in reference to your international speech. The second thing is this little saying that distinguished Toastmaster Pedro Young has. He says, say what you're going to say it, and say what you just said. What he's simply saying is, when you write a speech, it comprises essentially of three basic parts. Your introduction, saying it, say what you're about to say. Your body, say it. And then your conclusion, say what you just said. Part of the speaking process or evaluation process of a good international speech is a well-developed speech. The person could have the greatest oratory in the world. They can use all manner of body movements and vocal variety. But if that speech isn't crafted properly, as we'll look at down the road in reference to the judging criteria, then you're not going to go very far in the competition. So you have to ensure that you have a clear introduction. People need to understand what you're going to speak about so that they can embrace themselves on the journey that you say that you're going to take them on. And then your body should comprise of either points or easily recognizable facts as you take them along your journey and reference to your speech. And then your conclusion needs to give them a call to action, something that they can remember, something that they can understand at the end of the day, why you got up there and gave this speech. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the killer close. Then, most importantly, another important element is choosing your speaking style. Now, what am I talking about? You're just there to give a speech, Toastmaster Strawn. What do you mean by choosing a speaking style? Well, all of us have our own strengths and areas of speech that is more effective for me as opposed to you. Some have the motivational speaking style. This is the type of style that just encourages their audience to just strive for the best, seek and overcome. That may be your speaking style. So as you craft your speech, you're probably going to give it a subject that is going to allow you to just motivate your audience for success. Encourage them to go through adversity and all manner of issues. Then you have my favorite, the Joker. I think Toastmaster Trevor Lockhart uses humor a lot in his speaking style. So some people are more comfortable with humor, and you can incorporate humor in an international speech. So you can have a humorous international speech, and it can do pretty well. But most often, as I've seen over the years, the speaking style that typically wins the international speech contest is the storyteller. This particular speaking style allows two things. It allows you as the speech writer and the person who's going to deliver that speech the ability to recall your speech in a much more organized fashion because it's your story. You wrote it, and now you're going to tell us about it. And on the flip side, it allows your audience to follow what you're saying from beginning, middle, and end. And so this particular speaking style is very useful and is often used in the international speech context. And so think about something in your life that you may want to walk us through. Tell us about some adversity that you faced, and then show us how you overcame all of those obstacles in order to be where you are. Now let's look further. Let's dive deep into this judging criteria. And as you can see from my screen, 50% of your judging points comes from the way your speech is written. Before you utter the first word, before you say anything, well, before you deliver it, you have to ensure that you write a well-organized speech, a speech that fits the purpose of your particular topic, and then a speech that can give your audience something to remember. And so the logic that you use in your speech is important. So look at just the organization and structure of an international speech. 20 points can be allocated to how you've developed your story and how effective your speech is. And we'll talk about what makes an effective speech. And then if we look at our delivery portions, this is the portion of the competition that you should get 100% of the marks, because you can control how you appear, how you dress, and how you speak, how strongly you deliver a point, how effective you use your vocal variety in areas of your speech that touches your audience. And then, of course, how effective is your body language? And so these are the elements of the program that brings everything together. And this is the area that the judges look at in order to assess whether you've given a good speech or great speech. And so you use these opportunities to pick up those easy points simply by ensuring that you look right, you sound right, and you deliver with as much effect as needed. And then the smaller areas, grammar. This is an area that affects Bahamian speakers a lot. The way you speak in the Bahamas, some speakers try to use colloquialism, Bahamian dialect as part of their speech. And I would tell you to avoid that. Use standard English so that your judges, who may not necessarily be Bahamian, can understand what you're talking about. And be very cautious on your rate of speech. Oftentimes, Bahamians are criticized because some of the international judges assume that we're speaking too fast. So a tip that I would give you is to ensure that your speech is no short, between 670 to about 800 words. That allows you to deliver your speech in a very effective manner without necessarily having to rush through the content, and it allows you for audience reaction. In the event that you may have a humorous story in between, you want to give yourself time for the audience to react, and then for you to continue on your story. So your speech development, that story that you give within your speech, is very important. And then finally, you want to give that killer close. You want your audience to remember that you stood up and you gave the best speech that they've ever heard in their life. And so often, even when we tell a story, the most important thing of the story is the moral of the story, the thing that your audience should take away from what you just said. So when you craft your speech, remember to either give them some point, some lesson to learn, or some charge, so they can always remember when you sit down that you just gave them the best speech that they've ever heard in their lives. And if you do this, you will no doubt go very far in your very first, second, or third international speech competition. Thank you very much, and I hope these points that I've shared can be used or would have assisted you in preparing for your next competition. Madam Chairman.